This episode is brought to you by Trailer Park Yard Games, where over 28 games are delivered directly to your party. We park the trailer, you party.
And that's on average. Now, if you got a POS, and a POS, I'll just be frank, okay, cover your kids' ears. It's called a piece of. And, you know, so if your underwear have never seen a laundry basket, if all your beer cans are stacked on the floor, if you've never washed the tubs or anything like that, if when you walk in the house you have to wear a hazmat suit, you're not going to sell for more than list price. You're going to sell for well under list price.
Depending on what you list it for. Yeah. And something you taught me a long time ago is people are concerned with price.
Let's have a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.
Hello and welcome to the PB and Jaisy Show. I am Sarah Paget. This is
Bill Stedham.
And this is
Jaisy George.
Together we make up the PB and Jaisy Show, as I mentioned. Today we are going to do kind of the opposite of what we normally do. We normally have a pretty good plan in place, but something's come to our attention. We're hearing a lot of it on social media, national news, local news,
Facebook,
and
where you might get all of your news.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, and they're telling us the sky's falling.
The sky's falling in real estate.
Oh, good gosh.
You're crazy to buy, you're crazy to sell.
Interest rates are as high as they've ever been.
Right. We're hearing a lot of junk. So we're going to talk about some of those things today and hopefully help anybody that's kind of still thinking about it, tossing it around, buying and or selling. So Bill, I'll start with you. Let's talk about the difference between national real estate versus local real estate.
Well, first of all real estate's local. There's no such thing as a national real estate market. So what occurs in Mansfield, Texas has no impact on Los Angeles, and what occurs in New York has no impact on Mansfield, vice versa, all the way around. So all real estate's local. And I think that's important to know. The other thing that I think is important to know, and that is what you read on Facebook, what you hear in social media, and what you see in the actual media oftentimes isn't true. There's a statement that says, if it bleeds, it reads.
Right.
And that's what people tend to do because they start taking pieces of one little story and blowing it out of proportion.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, and I think too, a lot of people look at real estate as a want and not always as a need and or an investment. It's, I have to have bigger, better, greater, whatever, and it has to be perfect. At the end of the day, it's a really good place to put your money, and you happen to get to live in that investment. And I think we get away from that sometimes.
Well, we sure do. And I think we forget that every single person needs real estate.
Right.
There is not a person today that's not going to need a piece of real estate to lay their head down tonight.
Even if you're renting, even if you are in an apartment, that is a form of real estate.
So let's talk about that, Jaisy. What would you say to somebody that says, I have the money to buy, but I'll just rent. I don't want to buy right now. It's a terrible market.
This happens all the time. How many times do we have buyers that are like, I don't know, I've seen the interest rates. They're not as low as they were before. And, I just feel like, I should just wait. But honestly, what you're doing at that point is you are spending your down payment. The things that you could be essentially saving and putting towards your house, you're spending that. And why not? If they're, especially we know a lot of options for people who maybe think that their credit isn't as good as it should be to buy a house, or they just have these preconceived notions of what all the eggs that you need to have in your basket before you can buy a house, without talking to a professional, without talking to a loan officer to see what sort of loan options that are available to them. But also, there are a lot of things that are almost like a rent to own sort of thing where you feel like you're paying rent, but at some point you could actually own the house that you're living in.
Right.
And these are all options that they have no idea about because Facebook's not telling them about it.
Exactly.
I have a question. How much interest am I paying if I'm renting?
100%.
That's right. I'm not getting anything back on it.
Well, I think people see interest rate as a fee, but it's really just affecting the rate in which you earn equity. So the higher rate just means you're going to earn equity a little bit slower. You're still earning equity. And the price houses, or the price of housing here, the appreciation is crazy. So even at a 7, 8, 9% interest rate or higher, it's still a good investment. It's still a good place to put your money, and your return is still going to be greater than your rate.
Well, let's talk about interest rates for just a second, because that seems to be one of the
I heard they're at like 10%.
Oh,
right
yes.
Yeah,
They're astronomical. You're basically, you're basically not paying
not
for a
even
house.
close. So we're running literally today, and the day we're taping this show, July 23rd. Yeah, I didn't pull a rate this morning, but we're running right at the high 6s to low 7s. And let's put that in comparison for just a little bit of time. It's true that in the last 2 to 3 years, we were running at artificially low interest rates of 3% to 4%. You could even buy down into the 2s. And that means paying money, what we would call points, to buy down that rate into the 2%. Here's the reality. We had never seen rates that low since we started tracking the rates back in the 60s. So they've tracked rates my entire lifetime. And
It's a long time.
it is. It is a long time, over a 60-year period of time. And only twice in that entire span, right at the beginning and right at the end of that, did we have rates in the 3% time frame. Our average rate that we've had over the last 60 years is right around 8.5%. We're not even there. We're below that.
Right.
When I bought my first house, this is back in the late 70s, early 80s, my interest rate was 17%. 17%. And
And I'm sure that was good at the time.
no.
Or no.
It
Never
wasn't-
mind. I revoked that statement.
It wasn't bad.
You
It
had
wasn't
to live
good.
somewhere.
But I had to live somewhere. And let's put this in perspective. You know, I am getting older, so I'm 60 years old, get close to 61. That's not old, by the way. Some of us at this table might think it's ancient, but it's not old. But let's put it in perspective. So one of the things that I get in the mail every year, and now it's an email, is we get a Social Security statement that shows what we would get in retirement if we retired. And Anna and I were sitting down the other day looking at it, and I'm probably 8 years away from retiring. But we're looking at this statement, and I clicked on a link that showed my lifetime earning history. So I really want to put this in perspective. When I bought my first home, the income I made in my first year, $3,900. From 1 January to December 31st. Interest rate in the 17%.
Yeah.
Guys, you're not living in the rate.
Right.
You're not living in the rate. Now, here's the sad thing. Had I kept that house,
It would be,
it was in Anchorage, Alaska.
oh,
Had I kept that house, it would have a second comma in it.
wow.
Well, and what we've been talking about a lot is these, buyers that looked within the last few years that had to compete, multiple offers, $50,000 over ask price, all this different stuff. They were begging for inventory and begging for the market to change. Well, it has changed, guys, but you can't have all the inventory in the world and a 3% interest rate and no competition. Like, you can't have it all. So now we have more to choose from, a little more time to decide, but the rate's a little bit bigger. So you're going to have an exchange at some point.
Right.
And I think those buyers that were looking for so long, if you are one and you feel like you've missed out, you haven't. You're not going to have to pay on most houses. You're not going to have to overpay. I've seen list price and sometimes lower, or people giving closing costs back.
Yep.
So even though you have a higher rate, you're not way overpaying for the house. So it should always balance out a little bit.
And let's bring some things into perspective. So we work in the Mansfield market, and just happened to be sitting down studying. Now, I want to put today's date with the podcast because we record earlier. So it's the 23rd of July, 2022. And on Monday, I'm actually going to talk about what we call the North Texas Real Estate Information Statistics, or system statistics, what's happened in the market over the month of June, year to date, to all of our agents here in the company and in the office. And so I was studying the numbers. And in Texas and in North Texas, year over year sales, from the hottest sales we've ever seen, if we look at all of it, it is down about 8%, okay, year over year. But remember when we said there's no national real estate market? All real estate's local, just like there's no Texas real estate market. It's local, or there's no North Texas real estate market. In Mansfield, we're actually up sales. In the entire Mansfield market, not our office at Judge Fite, we're certainly up. Not Remax, they're certainly up. Let's just talk all of, shout out to Remax, Jody, you owe me. But I want to say that we're actually up in Mansfield, Texas. So in the area, the zip code is 76063, 8.9% year over year in sales. And we're running interest rates 6 to 7%. And you might think, well, it's taking longer to sell homes, right? Well, it's not. Homes are selling in 19 days. It's 19 days on the market.
Which is still pretty quick.
What's 4 days less than what they were selling last year. What we have seen, and this is a good thing for buyers, and Sarah was just talking to this, is we've seen an increase in inventory, more availability. Now, before you freak out, here's what I mean by that. In May, we had 1.5 months of inventory in Mansfield. That would mean that we turn our inventory every month and a half. That's really low. That's considered a strong seller's market. For those of you that don't know, a balanced market is 6 months of inventory. Anything less than 6 months is a seller's market. Anything more than 6 months is a buyer's market. In June, our inventory, 2.1 months of inventory. Guys,
And that just means if nothing else came on the market, it would take us 2.1 months to sell everything.
That's absolutely nothing. That's still a strong seller's market. I mean, I've been doing this over 2 decades. We would love to have 2 months of inventory on a regular basis. I think what we've got to do is we've got to get away from listening to the national media. We certainly have to get away from listening to the Facebook experts.
Right.
Your Aunt Karen.
Yeah.
No.
Gosh, they get out there, oh, the real estate market's so bad, why would you buy? Why wouldn't you buy? It's crazy not to. Why?
One thing that
No, go ahead.
One thing that I've been hearing that is definitely like a myth that I feel people have just made up is people being concerned that the value of their home is going to drop. Like they're somehow going to be upside down on their house immediately when they buy it, if they buy it right now, because a year from now, all of the housing, all of the value of homes is going to drop, which is crazy to think about because what is going to make the value drop? I think people just don't understand what makes the value of a home. So
let's talk to that for a second. How many times in history had the value of homes ever dropped?
In our market, never. Now, vacation markets may be a little bit different, because that's kind of the first to go when people have financial troubles. The Floridas, the Californias, when people are grossly overpaying, and then that market drops, and because they need to sell today. Yes, probably you're going to make less, but real estate's about holding, and holding. If you can hold it long enough, you will make your money return. Like you said, I know you've owned property in California and Alaska. Those markets, California can be a little volatile sometimes, a little up and down, but overall, when you look at the big picture, real estate always appreciates.
Yeah, and the answer to how many times has the market dropped? In our market, never. It's dropped one time in the history of keeping records in real estate. One time ever, the value dropped. Guess what? Every market in America has increased in value from the time that it dropped to now. No one has ever lost money in real estate if you bought it and hold it. It's kind of like the stock market. If you buy a stock, and we know the stock market's down, right? And a few weeks ago, we had a segment where we talked about the stock market, and we talked about a lady and her husband, and it was relating a Dave Ramsey story that was on Ramsey. There's a lady and her husband, they were in the stock market in the 401k, and when we had the Great Recession in 2007, 2008, they pulled all their money out. And they were happy because they had $250,000 at the time and they kept it, right? So they got on Ramsey and they started talking about how we pulled all our money out and we saved this money. 14 years later, what they had ended up doing was costing themselves millions and millions of dollars from pulling it out. If they had just left it alone and continued to invest in the market, they would have been multimillionaires.
Right.
So let me ask you all this, because there's also a rumor that I've been hearing that sellers miss the boat. If you did not sell in the last, 2.5 years, whatever, where we've had this crazy seller market, you've missed the boat. So let's talk about that.
That's silly. I think if you are looking to put your home on the market and have it signed, sealed, delivered within 2 days, and that was what you envisioned, okay, you missed the boat. But if you're looking to sell your home and make this basically same amount of money that you would have been making before, and still make on your investment, your home is going to sell. As a realtor, I tell, whenever we're having those kind of listing presentation things, I'll tell sellers, like, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, you could put a sign in your yard and for sure your house would sell. It would happen. But you don't want to leave money on the table.
Right.
I think that especially if you're looking to downsize or whatever, you're looking to move out of the area or whatever your reason is for selling, you didn't miss the boat. The boat's here. You're on the boat.
It's coming back.
Let's talk about the boat. Let's look at how the boat's made up. So if we look at our median sales price in the Mansfield area, I believe it's going to be $457,000. I believe that was the June median sales price. Sarah, you and I.
When he says medium, he means median.
Yeah.
Size medium.
Nothing.
Yeah, size medium, size large. So, but here's the situation. That was up over 20% year over year. Sarah, when you and I started selling together in Mansfield well over a decade ago, do you remember what the number was back then for the median sales price?
Mine was probably like 120, but mine's a little lower than some.
It was right around $189,000. So it continues to increase every single year. Year over year, we're up over 20%. And we see that gain every single month and have for a long time. Now, will we keep 20% gains? Probably not. Have we been able to keep 20% gains for a long time? Yeah. Does that mean the market's overheated and it's going to pop? Absolutely not. It's a completely different market than what we had back in 2008 for multiple reasons. One of which is we were severely underpriced in the Mansfield market. But the reality of it is you haven't missed a boat. You're not going to get 40 offers in the first 3 minutes. Okay? That part you have missed. But you're still going to receive good offers. You're still going to receive good offers. If 19 days is the average days on market, when I was selling, I would have loved 19 days.
Oh, yeah.
If you need to sell quicker than that, that's going to make me wonder, like, what are you running from?
Well, and there's a price.
What's going on here?
There's a price you can set it if you want it to sell tomorrow.
Yeah.
But most people don't want to do that. They want it to sell fast at the top price. Well, and when I talk to buyers or sellers, I talk to them like we're going into a grocery store, and I compare 2020 when we had no toilet paper, and if there was one on the shelf, it didn't matter what brand, it didn't matter the ply count, like you bought it. And that's what the last few years of real estate were like. Now we have selection, we have choice, we have options. So when there's options, it affects what people are willing to pay. I'm not going to way overpay if I can get something about the same quality for a cheaper price. So it just changes the way people buy. It doesn't mean that you missed the boat. It doesn't mean that. Now, again, you may not have people fist fighting in your front yard, but do you really want that anyway? A lot of those sellers were really stressed out. And some people decided so quickly that it didn't work out, or they would back out because they had to decide right on the spot, I want to, this is my forever home.
And there was a time that we were seeing where people were being greedy, and it was bad. Where
it was gross.
Yes, it was bad because sellers would immediately think like, yeah, everything says that my house is worth $350,000, but I think we should get at least $450,000.
I had somebody list. Let's say the price was $400 and brought them an offer for $425. They wanted to counter and see if they would do $450.
But that didn't make sense.
No, and it's like, what? Like, you should be happy.
At that point, that would make the buyer be like, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
I'm done. This is weird.
So another fact that I think is important, and I like to always go back to facts because it kind of counters what we see in the media, and it counters what we read on social media. Another fact that you need to realize is we have a little statistic called the list of sold price, okay? And that is looked at every single month. And in the month of June, by the way, we have not been below 100%, meaning it's selling for at least list price. We are still over 100% list to sold price. We haven't been below 100% in many, many years. So
Meaning you get what you ask, right?
Ask or more, yeah. Okay. And that's on average. Now, if you got a POS, and a POS, I'll just be frank, okay? Cover your kids' ears. It's called a piece of... And, so if your underwear have never seen a laundry basket, if all your beer cans are stacked on the floor, if you've never washed the tubs or anything like that, if when you walk in the house you have to wear a hazmat suit, you're not going to sell for more than list price. You're going to sell for well under list price.
Depending on what you list it for.
Yeah.
But and something you taught me a long time ago is people are concerned with price, condition, and location. But it all boils down to price because price can overcome anything. Price can overcome, the laundry basket issue that you said, or if it's in a bad location, there's still a price that will overcome all that. So I think today that's what I'm telling all of my sellers. It's so easy to overprice your house right now. It's impossible to underprice because the market will respond, but we have to be very conscious about our price because again, there's so much on the shelf. And if we're the highest thing on the shelf, we have to either be the best or we have to realize we have to be competitive.
Right.
It's like having a Cheesecake Factory menu right now. You've got a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And then I'll just go ahead and address an elephant in the room, and that's real estate agents. We're all real estate agents in this room.
Except Tom.
Except for Tom. But Tom's married he's the husband of he's an HO.
I bet he knows.
HOR,
more
husband
real
of a
estate.
realtor?
I bet he knows more real estate than people think. Because as a spouse, you hear
all the things.
Yeah, and you hear him talk on the phone.
But also, Tom is very much like a jack of all trades. And
except like rodent control.
Yes, except for rodent control, where he will randomly spit to me facts about literally probably cornhole, what we were just talking about. I feel like on a random Thursday, he would just be like, oh yeah, you know that 67% of more people are playing cornhole, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he'll just know these random statistics, but he will also send me articles about real estate that will come up for him. I'm sure the algorithm is coming after him just as much as it's coming after us. And so he'll send me stuff and be like, oh, this is what's happening in the housing market in DFW. And I'm like, yeah.
It's funny you talk about Tom and cornhole. A couple weeks ago, we did a segment on cornhole. And during the segment, I happened to look over while we're interviewing our guests, and Tom's up against a wall practicing his cornhole. I'm not sure he ever threw a cornhole bag in his life, and he's getting into it. But let's go back to the elephant in the room, and that's the real estate agent. And a lot of people are, should I still get in real estate? Have I missed a boat? Is this still a good career? And I'm going to tell you it's the best career in the world. And for the agents that are out there saying real estate sucks, there's no business right now, it's a bad business, guess what? They were saying that when houses were flying off the market. You might be in the wrong career.
And to those agents,
if you want to work, come on.
Yeah, exactly. We get questions all the time from people that are like, oh, well, what's the market like? Or I'm looking to get into real estate, but this and that. Because people, we've said it before, have these preconceived notions of what happens when you become a realtor. People think that you join a brokerage, you get hourly, whatever, you get these bonuses, you sell one house and you're making, $60,000 a year just with selling one house or something. But to the agents that say that there's, what is it, run, don't get into real estate and stuff like that, I would ask them how many clients have you called today?
Yeah. Well, I heard a really good statement. It said, you only be unsuccessful in real estate if you don't want to do it or you don't know how. There's only two reasons. So you either don't know how to do it or you just don't want to. And I can speak for our office. We are very well trained. So if you're not successful, it's because you don't want to.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because people see everything happening in real estate. And it was a few weeks back, and Sarah, you might have been here, Jaisy, you might have been here, but a person walked in. I won't identify whether they were a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter, but they walked in to interview with me to get a job in real estate. And I'm sitting down in the room. One of the first things I ask is, tell me about yourself, what you've done professionally, and, what you're looking for. And this individual told me, I'm looking for a career where I don't have to deal with people.
Oh. How do they think real estate works? You just go in and talk to the house?
Well, so I said, excuse me, tell me more about that. And he said, yeah, I had this job in sales and I got fired because I didn't like people. I said, okay, so what'd you go to do after that?
He needs to go work in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Or something.
Well, I went over here and I had this job and I got fired. I said, why? I didn't like people. Okay. So what makes you think real estate's gonna be good? What? I don't have to deal with people, do I?
Oh, goodness.
Who do you think buys and sells houses? That was literally one of the shortest times I've ever visited with somebody, because after a couple minutes we realized that this is probably not the right career for you. And the sad part is this gentleman had went out and already got a real estate license and was looking for a broker to sponsor him. So that was sad. Real estate is a great career if you want it. Everybody can be successful at it if you work at it. You don't have to love people, because some of us may not like being around people all the time.
Right.
You gotta be able to fake it.
Well, you
look
got
at me.
you got to be able to talk to people. You got to like people. You want to be able to develop relationships.
Well, I think it was Buffini that said, every morning that you wake up, you're unemployed. So you have to have that mindset of, who am I going to serve today so that I can continue to, be a realtor. And it's not, whose money can I get, it's who can I serve. And I think if you wake up every day with that mindset and that attitude, you'll have more than you can handle.
I think that's a key thing of who can I serve. You have to be looking for people to serve and seeking people to serve, because it's not always where the people who need you to serve them are going to come seek you.
Right.
So
I'm going to give a prediction before we go to our favorite segment. Or a segment that we have. And here's my prediction. I'm looking at my crystal ball and realize it's only based on studying the market for many, many years. But my crystal ball is that we still have probably 24 months of a good, solid market in the DFW market area, where we continue to see price gains, not price depreciations, where we continue to see a seller's market. Our market's doing good. It's time to get in it. Don't back away from it. We've got a little well, that'll be good. I wonder if we can edit that out. We have a little segment called Tales from the Lockbox. And we were talking about golfing earlier, and I want to tell you a little story about Lee Trevino. And Jaisy actually looked at me and said, who's Lee Trevino? So he's a professional golfer. He lives in the Dallas area. And one day Lee was out mowing his yard, and this big shiny fancy car pulled up, and a lady rolled down her window and looked over at Lee and said, hey, how much do you get paid for mowing the yard? And Lee looked at her and said, well, the lady in this house sleeps with me. She rolled up her window and took off.
That's funny.
See, Lee was mowing his own yard. So anyways, there you go. Level us up.
All right. So I just want to end. Well, actually, I'll let Jaisy. Do you have maybe a positive thought about real estate?
I want to challenge anyone that is really thinking about getting into real estate or thinking about, buying, selling, whatever, to contact me, JC George Center 21. That's right.
Color. She's not a normal realtor.
I'm not just a regular realtor. I'm a fun realtor. But no, really, I would challenge anyone that's thinking that all of these negative things about the market and all of these false things, really, to really educate yourself on what the truth is. And again, really though, if you are interested or have questions and stuff like that, the three of us are realtors. Normally we don't talk about real estate. We kind of keep it, kind of about anything. But I feel like this was great to be a myth buster to all of the craziness
sure.
that you see for sure.
For sure. So be sure to like, subscribe, follow, tell your mama, tell Aunt Karen.
Tell
Aunt Karen
everybody.
needs to listen to this episode. But really, just don't believe everything you read. Do your own research. And if your goal is to buy or sell, don't let anybody stop you. Make sure it's right for you and your family and ask the right people the right questions. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We out.
Bye.
Just had a chat, talk this and that with PB and Jaisy.